Hello all you adorable fluff butts out there, Kitthesoulless here, and today we're going to be changing up the format a little while we talk about something rather important. Today we'll be talking about hate, what it is, what causes it, and what it inevitably leads to when you let it take hold of you. We'll also be discussing ways to actively stand against hatred in ourselves and in our community, and why it's so important that we try. Hate is a powerful emotion that everyone experiences from time to time, but for some people it can become problematic. People who feed into their hatred and allow it to grow will inevitably have to deal with some seriously negative effects in terms of their health and mental well-being. It can have a profound negative effect on everyone involved, from the individual to the people around them. And the damage it does can leave scars. In our own community, we've begun to see the negative effects of this emotion on a rather large scale, leading to the division and social disconnect between the smaller groups or factions within the furry fandom. We saw this years ago with groups in our community such as the Burned Furs or the Furvengers, as well as with events in our history, such as the downfall of Rocky Mountain FurCon or the attack on Midwest FurFest 2014, known across our community as ChlorineCon. In world history, no event better exemplifies the effects that hate can have than the rise of Nazi Germany and their influence in World War II. Hate has been a driving force throughout history, used to justify so many atrocious acts against our fellow people. But what causes it? It often starts with something as simple as a rejection, subconscious fears, or even a perceived threat where none exists. It can, as well, stem from insecurities you might not even recognize you have. You see something in another person or a group of people that you dislike about yourself, and somehow, you let that feeling take root. You might not even realize that you're doing it at first. You make assumptions about others without thinking about it. Let it fester and pester you until you can't stand to see it or even think about it anymore. You find ways to justify it to yourself, these negative feelings you have inside, because you don't want to believe that you might be wrong. So everything else has to be. After all, you're the good person here, right? It claws at you, strips you and robs you of every positive emotion you could have, replacing everything with sorrow, anxiety, fear, and anger. And eventually, you break. You lash out at the people who care about you, isolate yourself, and seek out others who have given in to the same emotion for the sake of justifying what you're feeling. I know all of this all too well because I've been there. Who pays when the father sins? Who suffers when the sun falls? A harvest of tears. This is the legacy of hate. This is a poem by Gerald Anton, a character from one of my favorite furry comics, Associated Student Bodies, and it's this little poem found on the back page of issue 3 that first got me thinking. What is the legacy of hate? What does this emotion leave you with when you let it take hold of you and dictate your actions? In my own experience, the answer is a lot, but at the same time, nothing good. Anxiety, paranoia, the feeling that the world could have been such a wonderful place if only the things you hated were gone forever. This is an emotion with a mortality rate having led to millions upon millions of deaths across history, all because someone was charismatic enough to convince others to hate the same thing or the same people they did. It corrupts and overwhelms, and for some, it smothers them. Whether it's their own self-loathing or the hatred of others weaponized and aimed at them, it eventually becomes the justification for ending their own life. So what is the true legacy of hate? Death, despair, and sorrow. Everyone is capable of taking a stand against hate, and it starts with identifying this corruptive emotion within yourself. You need to try to understand why you hate and what other feelings it stirs up for you. When you feel you're having hateful thoughts, you should take a moment to step back and be mindful of the experience. Take a few deep breaths to try to alleviate the feeling of fear or anger that led you to these hateful thoughts, and try to challenge some of the irrational thoughts that led to such a poisonous emotional response. Likewise, if you see someone you know acting out in a hateful manner, try and get their attention off of whatever may be causing it. Try to help them to calm down. Ask them why they were acting the way they were, and most importantly, let them know that they aren't alone. If they lash out at you for your effort, give them time and understand that it's not an easy process, especially for those who have let this emotion control them for any meaningful period of time. Remember that letting yourself get angry at them for their hostility isn't going to solve anything, and in fact, might even make things worse for the two of you. As the late Great Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." So, as a community, I believe it's time we go back to doing what we as furries do best: spreading joy and love to those around us, rather than spreading hate.